Okay, we are just about to get going. Thanks everybody for joining us. We uh, have a bunch of people here from all over. If we could before we actually get started, by the way, this is John O'Landon, and I'm also joined by Pat Kenefick. So I'm the founder, CEO of Hubly.com. Pat Kenefick is Hubly's director of customer success. She has got many years managing Montessori schools communication. She was the director of Montessori's of communications at Montessori school for 6 or 7 years, and she's been the one of the key team members here at Hubly for the last year and a half or so, and I just want to welcome everybody. We're just about to kick off and start talking about the topic of how to find and keep the best fit for Montessori families at your school. What I really mean to say is, how to more easily find the the families that match the culture of your school. Let's say they more naturally resonate with the culture of a Montessori school, as opposed to another type of school, maybe a more traditional school, which is different. And that's what we're talking about today. Would love to actually hear from the folks. Where are you joining us from? Can you please? There's a chat box on the right side. Feel free to go in there and tell us, where are you from? Where are you joining us from? So we've got Rosalba from Burbank, California. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you here. And thanks for telling us where you're from. Is there anybody else that can share where you're joining us from? It's really exciting. Sometimes we get some really cool, like overseas guests, and it's always exciting to get feedback. Noor is joining us from New York, New York. That's great. So we've got the West Coast and the East Coast representing. So if we were doing a rap battle, we would have quite the story. And we've got Van. Oh, great! Two people. Oh, so sorry. We've got two folks from Canada. Actually, hey, Hubly is based in Toronto, Canada, folks. So Kirthi and Kathy, thanks for joining us. And it's a pleasure to have fellow Canadians. Pat Kenefick is our director of customer success. She's in our California office. She's down in Orange County. We've got North Carolina. By the way, although Hubly's head office is in Toronto, today I'm in Savannah, Georgia. I'm joining you from a much warmer climate than I'm used to. Toronto right now in Savannah, it's about 35 Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Toronto is probably about 10 degrees, if not a little bit colder. So right now in Savannah, it's as if it's the middle of the summer in Toronto. And apparently in the summer here, you don't want to be around here. That's what the locals are telling me. So thanks everybody for joining us. We've got Nicoletta from Syracuse, New York. That's great. Another New Yorker, a little more upstate, a little closer to Toronto. Okay, with all of that, thanks everybody for being here. We're gonna start. We're gonna get started. Without further ado, I hope everyone's got their coffee. I hope everyone's got their paper and their pencils, or another, maybe you're taking notes digitally, but please do take notes. This information is really important. So please let me know if you have any trouble hearing my connection, and seeing my screen, and we're gonna get going. So and I have one more little technical thing I need to address, and we're good. So I want you to take a look at this picture here and tell me if or just think to yourself if this looks familiar. Like, can you relate to this at all? Somebody's sitting at a desk, got calendars and binders and piles of money and sticky notes. All the while, there's a computer sitting there beside her that could actually manage all the same tasks with the right software. It could do it actually with a fraction of the time and the hassle. So you're in the right place if you know that you or your staff at the school spend hours managing communication tools and systems, if you spend hours every week managing piles of paperwork, and if you'd like to spend more time on the higher value tasks like face-to-face conversations with parents, and of course, more time in the classroom with children. So the other thing I want you to, I'm going to mention this now. I want you to stick with me all the way to the end of the webinar. There's going to be a really awesome bonus for you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I want you to be motivated to see all of this information. So I know all of this is relevant to you, and I know that you need it. So that's my little carrot, and I'll let you wonder what that is for now. What are we going to learn today? So the first goal is how to use the right communication tools the right way so that parents actually read your messages and are informed, which is something we're going to get into more, but just how crucial that is for everybody. The second goal is to learn how to be found by and how to engage the most ideal families for your school. And how to engage them throughout the enrollment process. And guys, I know that Montessori is for everybody. I believe that. I'm sure you believe that, but we also know there's a reality that not every family, not all parents, just they don't necessarily resonate with the approach and the culture, and sometimes it's not a good fit. So when it's not a good fit, we want to be able to identify that. And we want to help them find the right school for them if it's not yours. The goal number 3 is how to reduce the time and expense that goes into a disjointed or patchwork-like communication system, because that is where people are losing a lot of time. And I just want to mention, as I already told you, I live in Toronto with my family, and Toronto is in the province of Ontario. That's like our state, right? So Ontario, the Ministry of Education really likes to pound on the paperwork like no other. I promise you, no state in the U.S. compares. And we've got customers in all of them, and I'll tell you right now, we've got you beat. The paperwork, the bureaucracy that goes on in the Ontario Ministry of Education is unparalleled. And my wife she's an expert in early childhood education. Her name's Kyla, and she's worked in many education scenarios here in Toronto, and I know firsthand how much time she's had to spend doing paperwork and documenting and progress reports for the children she teaches. I'm sure everyone here agrees that parent engagement is incredibly important for the successful outcomes of students, right? Every major university has education departments focused on this. Johns Hopkins, Harvard, USC, just to name a few. But no one's really addressing what we've identified as really what's the biggest roadblock. So I basically have become obsessed with fixing parent engagement for many reasons. I decided this was my mission in life, to figure out the system for schools that will not only fix this parent engagement issue or just make it easier, but also make it just much more simple for school staff to perform their jobs by removing the hassles that exist with managing multiple communication tools and systems, right? So the beautiful thing about this is it's the same solution for both sides of the coin. Whether you're a parent experiencing the communication system or you're the staff managing the communication system, the same solution will make it better for everybody. And that's why I built this Hubly, which is the business that I founded. I'm the CEO. I've been working on it since 2012, and that's why I built this. It's an out-of-the-box, all-in-one parent engagement system. So the lessons I'm going to give you today, they're all based off thousands of conversations I've had with school directors, with teachers and parents and office managers. And so I've used all of that to build and continuously improve Hubly. So this information is not only coming from conversations, but also data, because we have a system that has managed over 3 million parent engagements, messages, and other types of notifications. And we can look at the data and we can see what works and what doesn't work. But I also want to make sure that you understand nothing I'm going to show you here today requires you to become a Hubley customer. I'm teaching you strategies that can be applied to any system or tool or process. And you're probably already using some type of patchwork of tools that offer most, if not all, the same features that Hubley offers. So, and the truth is, guys, you probably already know most of what I'm going to say, but maybe you're not exactly sure how to put it into words, or how to put it all to use strategically. So you've probably also heard about all of these tools I'm going to mention, or tried them out here and there, but you're obviously really busy running a school, and all of this information is kind of jumbled up in that drawer in the back of your head for everything that you're just going to deal with later. So this is probably somewhat familiar to everybody. So why is building a parent communication system so hard to nail down? That was the first question I really took a look at. Well, schools are not run by digital communication experts, right? Schools are run by education experts, and really that's the way it should be. It needs to be that way. I mean, that's the kind of school I want my kids in. But this does create a distinct challenge for schools. So the reality is that school leaders, unfortunately, are generally, across the board, creating some pretty bad communication systems. If you survey parents, if you talk to parents, you start to see what the results are. In every school we talk to has, we find like no standard of communication between the school and the parents. So from one teacher to the other, it's a totally different story. And they're literally more or less doing whatever they want, right? There's only so many checks and balances. So the question is, why aren't school leaders enforcing a standard, enforcing, I know enforcing isn't really the way you want to work with teachers, but why aren't schools promoting a standard of communication for the parents, right? Like, aren't parents essentially the customers, right? And shouldn't the quality of communication experience be geared towards what the parents need and want rather than what the school staff prefer, right? Like, if you could imagine what it would be like if you went to your local McDonald's restaurant, if you would allow me for a moment to compare a Montessori school to McDonald's. I apologize in advance. I know that might be offensive to some, but could you imagine what it would be like if every cashier could simply just decide what form of payment they prefer to accept without any standard? So, it's your turn in line. You go up to order your food. You're going to order a really healthy Big Mac, and then you're going to pull out your credit card, and the cashier says, "Oh, excuse me, ma'am, I really don't like dealing with credit cards. I only accept cash." Well, that would be pretty frustrating, for you as the customer, right? So, so you might decide that's not the place where you want to go eat next time, right? So, we see on average about 20 different communications tools used per school. So if you think about all of your staff, right? Like, what does everyone use for things like newsletters and announcements and invoices and documentations, progress reports, enrollment forms, etc.? The list just goes on. And we generally find that not only does the office staff use about 10 different tools, but each teacher seems to have their own little patchwork of communication tools as well, right? So in reality, what's happening is that most schools are actually training their parents to ignore their messages because the communication experience is so inconsistent. And so schools are actually sending repetitive information over and over with the hope that parents will read it, and then they're sending everything to everybody because it's just too hard to always group information only to certain people and make sure that people only see things that are 100% relevant to them. So what people don't realize is that this behavior actually ensures that many parents won't read any messages from your school, which also ends up really punishing the attentive parents that actually do open up and read everything and dig through the 3-page newsletter to find something that is relevant to them. So the result of this lack of communication standards, and I do want to clarify that I'm distinguishing this from what teachers need, the type of autonomy they need to have in their classroom, which is obviously really important. But if there's no standards, put in place for how staff communicate with the parents, which is, in another term, really the customer service side of the business, it creates way more workload from everybody. So, and so I just want to say, there's really two things we're talking about here. What goes on in the classroom, however magical your teachers may be, you really don't want it to be kept a secret, right? You want to make sure that parents are informed of how amazing the school is, right? So that's, what Hubbly is, what we're talking about today is everything that's around the classroom, right? Everything that communicates, from between the parents and the school. So remember, when parents don't like the communication experience, they ignore it, or they put it off for later, which means, and then they forget to go back and look at it. So that makes much more likely, it makes the parents much more likely to miss information. And when they are not informed, that means that everybody else working in the school has to actually do much more work, right? Because it also means less retention and less referrals, right? So all of these things just create much more workload for the staff, whether you're in the office or you're a teacher, right? To keep the school running and keep the school full of students is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, and if your parents aren't informed, it's much harder. So I'd like to just ask everybody if we could do a poll, like what communication tools are you using at your school, right? If you could first tell us how many, off the top of your head, just list off, think about the different tools that you use. How many are you using at your school? And also, what are they? If you could give us some examples, anything that you use to communicate between the school and the parents. Things we often hear is Facebook and Twitter, Shutterfly, Google's, spreadsheets, a lot of paper. Like, what are you using for forms? What are you using for a database? What are you using to message parents, keep them updated? Usually a whole, things like Constant Contact and MailChimp. What do you use to schedule parent-teacher conferences? So take a few seconds here, and just we'll give you a minute, and just in the chat box, please let us know. Wow. Nora, she's got 9 in total, so that's pretty common. So Tosha, you've got a newsletter. So what do you use for your newsletter? Sam's got 3 listed here: Facebook, text, paper forms. Okay, yeah, text message is a very common tool. So these are very normal responses, right? Oh, Tosha, thank you. So you've got newsletters, Facebook, and phone calls, of course, too, right? Okay, so so this is the very common response, and as we go through the this webinar, you're probably gonna see examples of other types of communication, and you're probably gonna realize that you've got a few more kicking around that you're not thinking of that are top of mind right now. So, so now let's take a look at some important market, trends in the private school sector in the U.S. So, and this is obviously, relatable to Canada and other areas. The market size is actually growing, which is a good thing. While the enrollment rates per school are declining. So, what does this mean? Well, basically, the market is growing, and that's just going to increase, right? But enrollment is getting harder and harder as the market grows because it's more competitive. So on the surface, people in the private school business might find these numbers a little scary, but I think this is telling us something that, that there actually is an opportunity, because if we look at the reasons why, schools are finding it harder to keep enrollment up, the solution to beating this trend is really easy to attain, because the bottom line is, and I don't want to come off as rude or cynical, but if Montessori schools start to operate more like the rest of the business world, and again, I'm only referring to communications like customer marketing and customer service communications, meaning parent engagement, really, the impact of that will be enormous. And so what I mean to say is fixing this problem is really easy. It just takes having a framework. So, okay, so what are we looking at here? So these are the 8 metrics of school business success, right? Every single business that exists, including schools, they live and die by their performance in these 8 metrics or measurements, however you want to call them. So now I've changed the generic labels of these business metrics from what you would learn in an MBA to more specific, Montessori schools, language or scenario. So if you interchange the school terms with, customers or units, like this would apply to a shoe store or a restaurant as much as it would to a school. So if a school is struggling in any one of these areas, okay, the school will generate less revenue, okay? Or you might even be running at a loss, forcing you to do fundraising. And the school owners and the director and the staff will experience more frustration and conflict. And the demands of the time on the whole staff will be harder, more demanding. And while everybody is essentially going to be paid poorly. So this all comes down to how strong the parent engagement system is, regardless of really how amazing the teachers are, right? And that's such an important thing to realize, to distinguish. You might have amazing teachers, and I hope you do, and I'm sure you do. And there's incredible things going on. I know that this is not about money. People do this out of passion, but at the same time, if the school generates more profit margin, you can reinvest that into the school, and you can pay your passionate teachers and your passionate staff more, and you can do things, and you can grow, and you can just do more amazing, magical things with more revenue coming in and a better profit margin. So, what I've done here is this is just a very simple spreadsheet that identifies the key these business metrics I was just talking about, and if we can improve them year over year, right? Just incrementally by only 10% each, then in 2 years, you'll actually more than double the profits at the school. So what we're looking at is, assuming that, let's just say your school currently has 100 students, right? And the next one down is retention rate. So let's say that your retention rate is 80. So that would mean that you have 20 spots to fill next year. So what that means if you look at the 4th line down, the 4th row says inquiries about enrollment. So if you have 20 spots to fill, then you should have 80 inquiries about enrollments. That's the ratio you should be striving for. You should have 4 times the amount of inquiries as you do spots to fill. So, and that would mean if you've got 4 times the amount, then you should have 10 times the amount of new families finding out about your school. So that would be like traffic, essentially, and that's the way everything starts. So let's say you're a shoe store. Traffic would be people walking by your store, and an inquiry would be an opt-in. That would be somebody coming in and trying on a pair of shoes. So that would be like, in the school terms, that would be an inquiry about enrollment, getting into the enrollment process. Okay, and then the next metrics, children per family, average program tuition, programs per child, and profit margin. All of those things, and that's profit margin per child. So all of those things at 100 students with those kind of industry benchmarks would put the school at about $93,000, $94,000 profit margin. And if you were to actually work and improve each one of those separate line items by only 10% from one year to the next, if you improved each one of them, you would actually get an overall profit increase by 46% in year 2. And if you're able to do it again in year 3, again, 10% from the previous year, you would more than double your profit margins in 2 years. So how does this work, right? So aside from being a rather cool mathematical trick, the significance is that the strategy allows you to double your profits simply by slightly improving your existing numbers. So everything compounds on each other. That's how this works. So, and if you approach it in this way, and let's say you take each one of these metrics, you dedicate 1 month to it, and you just cycle through that. 1 month on getting your inquiries up, and the next month on maybe figuring out a new program you can add, and the next month on working on some efficiencies to increase your profit margin. If you can spend a month and really focus each month on those, it actually becomes very manageable and very attainable. But it's all about having a framework and approaching things the right way. So now, I want to get into some real specifics here. So what are some things that we can do to actually more easily manage communications and improve it for the parents and make it a lot easier for the staff? So reply all emails are your enemy. Okay, so this one lady I spoke with recently said that she had to reschedule a meeting, and it took about 45 minutes simply for her to look through like this, spaghetti-like email thread and figure out who could or who couldn't make, multiple different proposed times by each person. So if you've ever been in that position, you're the one in charge of rescheduling a meeting. That can be really time-consuming and really frustrating. So this is what you can end up with, when everyone starts hitting reply all to include everybody else in this conversation, because it's a group conversation. This gets pretty fun when everyone's like on different email providers as well, and they all organize the thread differently. So what you end up with is this like really long thread, just like this, and all of these messages are actually collapsed right now. So if you were to open each one and try to find who said what at every stage of this conversation, it can get pretty hairy pretty quickly. So this is actually a list of progressively longer email threads. So it's almost like bowls of spaghetti all stacked on top of each other, and you're just looking for one specific noodle. Okay, so reply alls, I just want this point to really hit home. So if we can let this image sink in for a second, because the next time you go hit reply all to an email, I want you to think about the unintended casualties that can happen, and they happen every day, right? From this, what is seemingly innocent little behavior. But seriously, like I've met school directors who were forced to resign due to a reply all mistake. Not only can it be frustrating, it can be it can create real liabilities at the school. So if that itself isn't scary enough to deter you from hitting reply all, like I hope this message helps, because this poor little kitten, he's cute, and nobody wants him to get eaten by those brown monsters chasing him. So strategy number one, I would say, instead of using email for group communication, you want to use a tool that's designed specifically for group communication. Group threads like this example from the Hubley system are much better for group communication, because once something is posted, if somebody has a question, anyone can see the answer to the so the teacher doesn't have to answer it separately for everyone, and it's easy to see the thread in the history of the conversation. And everything is contained in that group. So when people need to find information, it's already organized for them in context, rather than having to sift through their entire email archive where everything else from their entire life is like all piled on top of it. So you also want to make sure that whatever tool you use, it sends and it tracks all the messages and tells you who has or hasn't read them or clicked on them or replied to them, right? If you look at this example here in Hubly, we actually make it really easy to see this information on every single message that is sent. So in summary, really, social groups like this one on Hubly are a great way to reduce tons of time and effort around managing communication because they have all the features that you really need, like real-time updates and events, group-specific events. You can answer questions just once for many people. You can share media, pictures, and documents and photo albums all inside that group. And private group document sharing and editing is something that is a lot of people are using. So that's a very important thing. And so here in the Hubly groups, all of that stuff is all inside that one group. But you can again, you can get these features from Facebook groups, different kinds of social media groups that are being used out there, like Facebook or Google groups or other, Shutterfly. These are all of these groups do different things. They don't do all of these things in one, but those are some examples that we hear from schools. And there are, they're much better than reply all email threads. The second thing you want to make sure is that the system that you use has an option to send out notifications. And you want to make sure it has both email and mobile notifications. So, so it really has a better chance of getting read. So this is fairly standard as far as group communication tools like Facebook and Google, the ones I've mentioned, Instagram, Twitter, etc. This is, again, these examples that we're showing you are from Hubly. So the problem is with those other tools is, parents can, actually oftentimes turn off the notifications. And they all, and they'll do that oftentimes because, everything, they don't want, because everything's coming from the same sources like Facebook and Google or whatnot. So the benefit of a notification system built for schools like Hubly is that it's a discrete channel of communication. So it doesn't get mixed in with everything else. So parents, are more likely to keep notifications on. But we also know that you need the authority to override someone's notification settings, because when you have an urgent message or an emergency, you need to make sure it's going to hit the parent. So a system like Hubly will allow you that ability to override those types of preferences, which you can't do on a system like Facebook. Another really important feature you want to look for, and this one I really actually can't stress enough, is that whatever tool you use, make sure that the parents don't have to log in to respond. If you want to increase parent engagement, you absolutely must remove as many steps and barriers to engagement as possible. So you want a tool that allows users to reply to system notifications that land in their email directly from that email. So again, there's a number of tools out there that do this, Facebook and LinkedIn. So for the types of communications that you can do in those systems, they actually let you, they give you this ability. And so, those are probably two of the most popular ones that do this. But this diagram here shows how Hubly manages it. So first and foremost, this is about removing barriers and making parent communication as easy as possible for everyone. But there's a very valuable ancillary benefit here in the Hubly system, in that you actually, as school admin, have access to all of the communication threads and records between your staff and your parents. So everything that's being sent, that's being managed by the Hubly system, whether they're communicating from within or from outside of the Hubly system, it's still being archived inside Hubly, so school admin can actually see it and have easy access to all conversation records, which can sometimes be a beneficial thing. When there's sometimes somebody might say they didn't see something, or and you want to just verify. Calendar management is another place where we see schools losing tons of time, time that could be spent on much higher value tasks, right? Rather than just updating multiple calendars with the exact same redundant information. Many admins I talk to have multiple calendar systems that they have to keep each one of them updated manually. So now you ideally want to create a separate calendar for each class or program so that parents don't have to sift through events that are not relevant to them. Because if they have to do that, many times they just won't bother because it's just too time consuming, or they're just too busy and they forget. Again, most of the times when parents are ignoring your communications, it's not because they mean to, it's because your communication system takes too much time and too many steps, and they're just too busy and they push it off and then they forget. So it's not like you've got bad parents that don't want to be informed. It's just that they're really busy like everyone else is, right? So it's just like I said before, parents should not have to log into any system to be informed. So if you notice here on the example of, this is the Hubly calendar tool, there's a feature so parents can synchronize their personal calendars so that any event that's created in the Hubly system, it'll automatically show up in any personal digital calendar tool that they use. So on Hubly, we give you this one centralized calendar tool, and it allows you to create events and assign them to any specific program or group, and then can send out notifications to the parents, very automatically by the system. But like all the features here on Hubly, we've got this like baked into this one all-in-one platform. There are many other separate calendar tools that have all these same features, and they're out there. Google Calendar is probably the most widely used one. So once all of these other tools are in play properly, right? So the question is, what should go into your newsletter, right? I mean, there's a time and place for newsletters, but if you're using groups like tools like groups and other tools the right way, those systems have notifications that should be taking care of the majority of like the day-to-day announcements and updates and reminders to parents. So newsletters are really best used for less frequent communications that really talk about your school at a higher level. And if they're not bogged down, if they're not, if there isn't just a long list of day-to-day details, it'll allow you to write much more engaging and targeted newsletters that will be much higher, much more valued by your parents or your prospective parents. So they should be focused on parent education and giving them tools and understanding that they can use at home with their kids, right? Your newsletter can become this value add rather than something that just gets dodged because it's long, boring, and mostly irrelevant, which is usually the case, right? So this is an example of the Hubly newsletter designer. It has all the same functions and features that you'll find in a lot of tools that schools use, like MailChimp or Constant Contact or MadMimi, just to name a few of them out there. But of course, with Hubly, it's not a separate tool, so you don't have to manage its database separately because it's already connected to the one Hubly database. It's all centralized. And as I mentioned earlier, the average school is spending approximately $2,000 a month on average, just with the cost of buying paper, printer ink, photocopy repairs, postage, and the time, the hours that goes in every day to managing paper. And paper is so time consuming, looking up information, organizing the information, right? So this is an example of the digital form feature in Hubly. So this is how we help you drastically reduce the paper that's used. And so obviously the physical expense, so when a parent can fill out a form digitally, and I don't mean download the form from an email or from the website and then fill it up by hand and give it to you, because that's just when your work starts. What I mean is they literally fill out the form digitally. Like they type in either on any device, and they can do signatures with their fingers or the mouse, and they can pay. So that is what we mean by by digital forms. Hubly has this baked in, and the real value here is that when the form is submitted, the job is done. You don't have to collect the form and then type the information into another system or file it into a paper system, the information is automatically filed digitally, and it's really easy for you to look it up in seconds rather than usually what takes hours by looking up information or managing information by paper. And when it's a digital system, it can have other great benefits, meaning it's all legible because it's all typed in, and you can make fields that are required. So you don't get forms that are half filled out, missing important information that you then have to chase parents for later on. So I just want to talk about an example of introduce you to Amy here. She is a very active parent volunteer at her daughter's Montessori school, and when they used to do the parent packet. It was like 4 to 5 weeks of full-time work for 1.5 staff members and almost one full-time parent volunteer for almost a month and a half, where it was just like make these piles of 30 sheets of paper sent out to all the parents, collect them, manually type the information into a database like what's the word? There's many database tools out there, whether it's Microsoft or Apple, and all of these steps and all of this time when you use a digital form system like Hubly, it all disappears. There's other tools out there. There's Woo Forms, there's Google Forms. They all work a little bit differently, and these are you can really save incredible amounts of time and effort by using digital forms. Polls are another great way, much easier way of making decisions, or at least just getting a consensus from a group. This is a great, it's great for scheduling meetings, deciding on what gift you want to give your favorite parents, or anything really. It's a poll, right? So the point is, if you're to do this over a group email thread with using that reply all function, that could be a daunting task to just even reschedule a meeting. But you can let everyone enter a poll, and it gets the information that you need so much faster with much less hassle. And making a poll like this in Hubly, as an example, you can do it in seconds. But there's other tools out there, right? There's SurveyMonkey, there's Doodle. But the point is, this is just Hubly's example. Like polls are so handy for so many things, and I can't tell you. I mean, decision making, people in schools usually need to get consensus, and this is one of the fastest ways to do it. And it can be very time consuming if you're not using a good tool like this. So when you're dealing with a digital form provider like Hubly, we'll even organize your entries for you, so you don't even have to type them manually into a spreadsheet or a database, for weeks at a time. So like when you have to find something, it's just a simple search or a sort, and then, thumbing through stacks of paper, that experience just doesn't happen anymore. So when there's a form or a report or a documentation, let's say filled out about a student, just like think, how much time does it take you to look up or organize that or send it out to the parents? What if all the parents or staff, what if all they had to do was just fill out a form and the system sent the information to the right person automatically, right? And place the information on a page about the student for a really easy lookup or printing or editing, right? So that's the goal of a system like Hubly. You can get other systems like Google Forms and Woo Forms and things like that to connect to other tools, and you can kind of create these systems to all talk to each other if you've got the time and the expertise. It is possible. Again, Hubly just gives all this to you out of the box. But the point is that you should be using a digital form tool, and your form should be able to send notifications and should be organizing the data by student automatically. I just want to tell you about another example of a teacher that really likes to do field trips. So it used to take him for every. So this is a teacher using Hubly, and for every field trip, he would spend 3 hours managing paper, 3 hours per field trip. And when he started using Hubly, he was able to do 14 field trips in the year, all in under an hour, because it's just all those steps: going to the office, getting a form created, printing it off, handing it out to the students, getting it back from the students, walking around for weeks while this stack of forms just grows and grows, and then like you have to make a list for like when you're on the bus and you're checking the roster. All of those steps completely removed, and that just means better. And this is what I mean by results for students. These students got to go on way more field trips, which are so educational. Such a great way to educate is take them to see real live examples of things. It's much more just all the other elements of education. Field trips are amazing, and they should be easy. They shouldn't take 3 hours of paper management every field trip. So how do your parents, currently book like parent-teacher conferences, or how do your prospective parents book tours at your school? So what we usually hear is that they have a sheet on the door, of every room. So like, let's say for parent-teacher conferences, parents have to go into the school. They have to go into the school and walk around from room to room, right? So what we have at Hubley is a more sort of automated digital scheduling system, so that people can just see all the schedules from one central place, from anywhere they are, from on any device. And then when a session gets selected by a parent, it's unavailable to somebody else, and it sends automatic reminders, and all those types of automated steps that mean parents show up more too. So this is something that you could get from. There's many tools that do this, of course, all separate tools like Sign Up Genius, Schedule Once, Calendly. There's many other tools, and usually they can also integrate with other tools. If you know how to get these different sort of systems to integrate with each other. Of course, with Hubley, it's all out of the box in that one system. But the point is that using paper on doors for signups and for scheduling, and having to send out reminders manually, you have to remind yourself to remind a parent to show up for a conference. I mean, these types of things are just very redundant, and it's just a lot of busy work that you shouldn't have to do. So up until now, like I've been talking about, the internal communications, with your enrolled parents. I want to switch gears for a second now, and I want to talk about communicating with prospective parents, right? Most Montessori schools today, they want to increase their enrollment numbers, or at least they want to increase the number of inquiries of families that are actually looking for a school like yours. So rather than parents who are just looking for anything, because you all know that parents that are actually more in line with the values of the Montessori method are more likely to stay, and the ones that aren't are more likely to leave, after a year and take a few more families with them when they go, right? So the best way to feel confident in directing the wrong families to look for a different school is to actually have enough inquiries so you don't feel like your back is up against the wall, when you need to fill up the school. So when set up properly, your school's website should be getting found by prospective families, and it should be increasing the number of inquiries of families that are actually an ideal fit for your school, and then driving them into your enrollment process. So another way to think about your school's website is kind of like a billboard. I often give this analogy when helping people understand what Hubley's web hosting and search engine optimization services do for them. Like, this is one of the core features that we offer. In fact, all of the other features I've shown you here today, they're all delivered actually via this high performing website that's really easy to customize. So like, everyone knows they need a website, and I don't think I've ever come across a school that doesn't have something online. But what I find is that most school directors don't quite understand what their website is meant to do for them. So one thing that is key about your website and the way it's designed is that it should be designed for the purpose of not of actually selling your school. The purpose of your website is to get the right families, the best fit families, to inquire about the school. And those are two different goals. And you want them to enter into your enrollment process. And this is such an important distinction, because you should not be selling someone on the Montessori method on your website. That's what the rest of your enrollment process is for. When they come in to meet you, when they come to your open house, right? When they come to do a tour. But the point at which they find your school online is when it's all about getting them to that open house, not selling them on your school just yet, right? And so one of the best ways to engage prospective parents is to use a blog. Your blog is a great place to answer common questions, right? But I want you to pay attention here. The most important thing about blogging is to stick to a very consistent schedule. Above all else, content, what you put in the blog is important, but even more important than that is being consistent. You want to make sure that parents see you and that they see that your school can manage a consistent, have consistency. That builds trust in your school. It's very, very important. I'm just going to skip down. So the next thing that you want to make sure you do is you want to be writing about relevant topics to the parents, right? You should think of your blog as a value-added content that's really just like a gift that you're giving out for free. It should be good enough, the content should be valuable enough to the parents that are reading it that they would literally have bought it, otherwise. If you were selling it, they would actually pay you for it. So some ideas of blog articles I've seen, that I think are really good, things like how to get your kids to eat healthy, or, the top 3 strategies for handling sibling fights. I know that my 2 girls, got 2 toddlers, one's almost out of diapers, one's still in diapers, so many things that I need to learn about. Thankfully, I've got an expert of a wife, but still, I would like to learn on my own, and I'm always looking for content. And if your school can offer that, you'll be developing a great relationship with your prospective families. And really, the ultimate way to achieve, school administrative workload reduction, if you really want to simplify your parent engagement, workload, you're going to want to set up some automated workflows, right? So, like, to handle a lot of those kind of repetitive tasks that you have to do, you want the system to be able to handle them automatically. So this is just an example of like an automated workflow that we recently built for one of our customers inside their Hubly site. There are many tools that do this, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, Drip, Marketo, Pardot. These are all tools that they're definitely not cheap, and there's a steep learning curve. But if you're interested in using, Hubly's workflow tool, it's designed specifically for schools, so you don't have to I guess ignore features that don't make sense for the school. So this is just an example, but the bottom line is all the different steps that somebody has to go through from finding your school online, filling an inquiry form, coming into a tour, getting informed about the school. All of those things should be handled automatically by the system, so that your time is not spent sending reminders and booking things and reminding them to fill out forms, rather showing up and having those face-to-face interactions so that you can really be selecting the best parents for your school. So what do you think? So that's my question for you right now. I'm not exactly sure, why you showed up here today, but I bet I can guess, right? So you want to be able to send messages to parents and trust that they get read. But you might not know if parents are actually reading your messages, or so you have to keep following up with them and resending the same communications over and over again. And you want to free up your time from like the repetitive and remedial activities like sorting through sheets of paper, so you can spend more time on higher value tasks that have a much greater impact on your school. So that you're capable of doing more, and you really just need to get some of these roadblocks out of your way. So you want to give your parents a communication experience that they actually appreciate and they don't feel that they need to dodge. So I want you to know, you've shown up here today, you've made it a priority, right? You've taken notes, hopefully, and maybe you're even excited about the opportunity. I want you to know that an efficient communication system can change your school and it can change your life, but you've got to know what at your specific school you need to do in order to create this sort of efficient and trustable system. And that's where we come in here at Hubly. So remember, nothing I've shared with you today is theory. I've actually implemented every single one of these strategies to help schools grow. So you've got 2 options. Option 1, you can take this information, of course, that I've given you, and it's pretty high level, and you can figure out how to make the changes on your own. You're all smart enough, there's no question. Everybody here today, I'm sure you're smarter than I am, and if I can do it, you can certainly do it. But I'm assuming that, like everyone else in your position, you're probably very busy and you don't necessarily have the time. So there's a simpler path for you. So the obvious question is, like, how do you get this all to work up and running in a way that's quick and painless, of course. So we've started offering select schools a parent communication assessment. But before I start telling you about this, I want to get your permission. I don't want to just start selling things to people. I want to know that I've got your permission to take a few minutes and tell you about how this assessment works. So please let me know if I have your permission to do so. And I'll just wait until somebody, just go ahead and go into the chat. Let me know if I've got your permission to tell you about this this assessment that we're offering. Okay, we've got an affirmative. Thanks. So I'll continue. The Hubbly Parent Communication Report Card, that's what we're calling it. It's the absolute fastest way to learn exactly what your specific school needs to attain huge workload reductions in parent communications, so that you can free up your time to focus on your higher value tasks. So what do you learn? Well, first of all, you're going to learn how your website's performing for speed and security and overall search engine optimization. And you're going to learn how you can increase the amount of inquiries of prospective families that are a good fit for your school while tracking them through the enrollment process with an automated tool. And then how you can substantially reduce the hassles and the workload of managing all the different forms of parent communications. And what you'll get is a 1-hour live one-on-one assessment with me. That's me. And you're going to get an actionable report with very specific strategies and tools that you can employ. So this is going to be custom. This report is specific to your school. It's based on what you're currently using and how you can use those tools or others better. So optionally, you can get also a 50% discount off the Hubbly setup in our training system. If you want to use Hubbly to do that, you don't need to, but that's why it's optional. And the other optional thing is, if you do want to use Hubbly, you'll get 1 free month from our annual subscription. So this is the first deliverable. We'll run your site through this analysis tool, and we're going to tell you exactly how it's performing in all the key areas that determine if you're likely to be found by the right prospective families. So we've got performance, whether it's mobile, responsive, search engine optimization, and how it's doing on security as well. We're also going to give you a tailored action list that identifies the top 3 things that you need to update for the tools you are currently using, or the tools and strategies that we identify that you need to adopt. And then this is where we get really crystal clear. This is the third deliverable, where, on what your current processes are costing you and how much additional profit the school could be making with small incremental adjustments to everything. So this is an ironclad business planning report that no school owner or board could ever argue with. This is this is the infallible, what comes out of this assessment is real, and you're not, this you could take to the bank seriously. So this is how banks and investors and business people make decisions, and we're gonna run through that tool with you. So if you want to have an easy time convincing other people that things need to change, this is something you definitely want to have in your tool belt. So are you ready to learn exactly what you need to do to create an amazing parent engagement system? Well, you're probably wondering what the investment would be. So of course you could keep doing what you're doing, obviously, and per 100 students, schools spend on average about $30,000 a month managing tools in the current way. So that's, again, an average. Another option is that you could hire consultants to come in. Of course, usually that's a lot more expensive. So that's you could either not change things, or you could spend a lot more money to fix things. So with Hubbly, what are you going to get? So the regular price of this assessment that we offer is $498. With the Hubbly setup, the regular price on that, again, that's the optional setup that you don't need to take. but that's regularly priced at $1,999. And then the Hubly, the monthly fee is $199 a month. So the total value of everything that we're offering is $2,696. So your investment today is only $97. The Hubly's regular price on the assessments dropped down to $97 from $498. Again, the optional Hubly setup, we reduced that by 50% down to $999, and the Hubly system, the first month it's free, it's $0. So the total savings today is $1,400, and so we've made it really easy for you to get big results, and so you can get started today. This offer, it ends today. You can go to Hubly Report. Hubly.com/get-report. And I also want to mention that we have a 100% money back guarantee. Plus, if we'll give you $25 just for your time. If you feel that it was a waste of your time, we'll actually go ahead and not just give you your money back, but we'll actually give you an additional $25. So now what I'm doing is I'm dropping down an offer. We've got 15 minutes left on this webinar. So now is the time I can answer any questions. You can go ahead. And I just want to tell you guys that I don't want you to, this isn't about feeling pressure. We don't like to sell through, do high pressure sales or anything. That's not our approach. But we only have capacity to do this for about 5 schools. So like at this rate. So it's just a matter of capacity right now. So we can actually only take the first 5 schools that sign up for this offer of $97 for the assessment. So again, it's not our goal that you feel pressured, but we just have a reality. We're a software company. We do a lot of different things, and these types of assessments are they're actually quite time. It's kind of resource intensive for us. So when we offer it at such a huge discount, we really do have to limit the capacity that the actual amount of offers that we can make. So we're capping this at 5 schools. So please let me know if you have any questions about it. And we're here. I'm here. You can ask me about this parent communication assessment or anything else that we talked about. If you have questions about how to use these other tools, feel free to use the chat box. We're here for about another 14 minutes to answer any questions that you have. Maria says, I'm in. What does that mean? Where do I pay? Oh, Maria, so you can just click on do you see the offer on the right side? There should be a little button on the right side of the screen, or somewhere on the screen should allow you to sign up for the assessment. Maria, are you seeing that button there? Does anybody have any other questions about either the offer today or any of the other content that we've gone over? Yeah, so another place that you can sign up for the assessment is if you go to hubly.com/get-report. That's another place. If you're not able to see the the button that allows you to click and go pay for the assessment, you should be able to just go straight to hubly.com/get-report in your web browser, and that should allow you to get the assessment as well. And we're still here live. Does anybody have any questions about any of the content that we went over today? Any questions about how to use? You know what? I'd love to hear from anyone still joining us. How are you using? If you have like a novel way that you're using any of the tools, I'd love to hear some examples. We actually learn things from schools as well, of course, and we're always learning seeing great ideas from people that are using different tools, and we like to share those as well. So please feel free to give us some good ideas that you have. So we've got about let's see, how much time do we have left here? We've got about 8 minutes left, and uh, we are still here, ready to take any questions, hear ideas about great tools for parent engagement, great ideas, great ways to use different tools that you're currently using. If you have any questions about the assessment, we're here to answer those as well, of course. Maria, were you able to find the button to sign up for the assessment? Just a couple minutes left, folks. Any questions? We're here for you. We're going to stay on for another few minutes. Let us know if you have any questions about anything. Okay, guys, so now we're going to be wrapping it up now. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to get the report at a later time today, go to hubley.com/getreport. And if you want to ask any questions, of course, you can email me at jono, Jono, at hubley.com, hubbly.com, and our number is 1-888-415-4450. Again, that's 1-888-415-4450. We're signing off. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Have a wonderful day.